This is Gippsland FM, your community connection. And the weather, yes, if you look outside, there is a bit of rain, it's a bit of chill, a bit of cool here in Gippsland. Good weather to be inside, snuggling, maybe getting a bit of warmth happening that way and help the population build up, because we do have a population crisis coming. But this is Business, Wealth and Mental Health, the show that explores how thriving businesses, wise financial management and peaceful relationships are better for your mental health. And I have with me today Darren Crouch from Beyond CNC. Darren, pleasure to have you on the show.
G'day, mate. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to have you here. Tell us a bit. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine. This
Jesus.
is, you might remember this as, or you're a bit younger than me,
Yeah,
so you
back
maybe
in
don't.
my day.
Exactly. This is the silver DeLorean that Doc Brown invented. I mean, you hit 88 miles an hour, and you're shaking your head going, "Don't."
Yeah.
We're going to have a movie night and take you through Back to the Future. Jump in. What the Wayback Machine is, you hit 88 miles an hour, you could travel through time. So let's jump in that. Hit 88 miles. I'm sure you can put your foot down. And let's go back to the start of your business. What was the driver that you wanted to step out, take that leap, big risk all that money, and start a business?
I was working for a big corporate firm, so it was good to sort of change, and I wanted a lifestyle balance, really. Looking at different avenues, and I was already creating and building things already at home. Built a tray for my car, and I was building fire pits for family and friends. But the real big jump was, the work-life balance. You can sort of pick your own hours and move on from there.
Is that a reality, though, the work-life balance when you're in business? Because it seemed to me that, business owners that I speak to, they work a lot more hours than someone in a normal 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, look, you are right. You're working a 9-to-5 job. Yeah, you go home and you can relax and have family time. Owning your own business, yes, you do put a lot more hours in. However, you can choose when you put those hours in. And if you manage your time and you manage your family life and you manage your personal life quite well, yeah, it does actually work out.
So what are some of the tips and tricks to managing life well? Because you've got, your wife had a little baby girl
little
recently.
baby Haley, 6 weeks old, had her shots today, so she was not too excited about that. I don't think Mum was too excited about that either. But she,
bit of crying there.
Yeah, from both sides, but we got there in the end. They were gorgeous.
Okay,
they're great. They're good.
But when you take that on board, I mean, you've got a business, you've started a business, you're growing a business, which always has a lot of risk. How do you manage that? I mean, how important is that support to running a business?
Having a really, really good support network around you with family. My partner's family and my family are super supportive, so that's amazing. Friends around you all the time that you can just ring during the day if you think you're hitting a bit of a lull point, and then picking you back up is huge. Managing your time, you've really got to be headstrong. You really have to be firm that if you've got a spare hour, you make that hour worth it. So whether you're replying to emails or you're out there cutting and making, but you just sort of pick your times of the day, really. And I mean, Haley can cry at the drop of a hat, so
so you've got to adjust that at that point in time.
It's been a little bit of adjustment the last 6 weeks. It's probably been the toughest in the last 6 weeks. Yeah,
and let's talk about that side of things of getting into a business. When you had those risks there, I mean, because when you were growing up, you also had haemophilia.
Yeah,
if I understand correct. So there was a lot of caution, and rightly so, on your parents' behalf, because you were in the top category, weren't you? We'll call you a bleeder.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm a severe bleeder. So when I tell people I work with steel and I was a diesel mechanic prior to this, it's the look of shock in their faces. It never gets old. Severe haemophilia A, so very, very rare bleeding disorder. So just means your clotting factor is sort of less than that 1%. But again, it's look, don't get me wrong, my parents were amazing, but it was very like, oh, don't let him do this, can't do that. So I was very mindful as a youngster, and then I hit 18 and become a diesel mechanic and sort of followed that path.
How did your parents take that when you said you're going to be a diesel mechanic?
They were great. They were really good. They were very, very supportive, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yes, it was very much don't hurt yourself, or can you hurt yourself? So but it's just how you manage it, really. It's
because that point's interesting, because you have severe haemophilia, and you said you wanted to be a diesel mechanic, which risks being cut. It's very high, but your parents were very supportive. Now, there is research out there. There's a research study was done a long time ago, and they studied Steven Spielberg, Eddie Van Halen, all these people that were really, really successful, because what they wanted to do was find out, is there a common factor? And they went through, I think it was 280 different variables, and none of the people in the study had this consistency across that until they found one variable, and that variable was, and it was generally the parent of the opposite sex had an unwavering belief in the child's ability. So when the child was young, if the child said, I want to be an astronaut, they say, you're going to be the greatest astronaut.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about whether the child was going to be an astronaut or not. It was about the child developing a belief in their ability to do things.
To do it, yeah.
How much do you think that, from the way you're describing your parents, how much do you think that played in your ability to just go, I've got haemophilia, I'm at high risk of dying, but I'm going to be a diesel mechanic anyway.
Yeah, and then bought a snowboard and bought a motorbike as well, much to Mum's disgust. But look, I think it is there, and I think it is right. If you do have that support, you can do it. It's your own determination, really. I do believe that gets you through it. So if you can do it yourself, then do it. Pushing yourself, it's more of a mental thing than a physical barrier, really.
So when you, again, similar sort of thing, you've got a business that's starting up.
Yeah.
How much do you rely on that support? I know from my perspective, I'm not going to say my age, but I'm quite old. I'm older than I look.
Ancient. No, that's okay.
Ancient, exactly. I get that comment all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, you're old.
Yeah.
You didn't
88 mile an hour, mate.
Exactly.
You didn't get that.
Exactly. But I still turn to my dad and just run things past him just for that feedback. And he may or may not know what I'm talking about, but I get that support. Yeah. Did you have that sort of similar thing as well?
Yeah, a little bit. So I had my partner was amazing. She got a lot of support from her. I lean on her heaps. So yes, she's similar age, but I lean on her, and she's probably my biggest support network there is.
Yeah.
So I look to her for different things, or hey, I have this crazy idea, and she will say yes. And Sarah's my partner's name. Sarah will go, yeah, that's a great idea, or maybe just rethink your crazy idea, So she's fantastic in that aspect. From the parent side, it's like anything. It's that you're going to get the negative and the positive, aren't you?
Well, parents are going to be cautious, especially mums, and mums are generally cautious. Just don't play with that stick; you might poke your eye. And it's like, that's the point, Mum.
That's right.
There's the risk.
Yeah.
And this is where it's really interesting, because I'm listening to you talk about that support, and for me, it was the opposite. I mean, I didn't get into a long-term serious relationship until later in life. And then I found, that I didn't have that support. It became very difficult to do things because that support wasn't there. So I'm just wondering, it sounds like when you were talking about that, that was one of the key drivers that enabled you to actually do that.
To do that, yeah, correct. So, I mean, how often do you go to your partner and say, hey, I want to buy a machine from America that I don't know how to use, and I've spoken to a guy on the phone about it, and she says yes? You can't get much more supportive than that.
Yeah, but that wasn't the first thing you bought from America.
No, correct.
Tell us about that one.
Yeah,
what was that? Because your first foray into business wasn't the business you're doing now.
That's correct.
Which is Beyond CNC metalwork. Yeah. What was your first? Tell the audience.
I owned inflatable jumping castles. So
what was it? Come on.
It was a massive fire truck. So it was 14 meters by about 6 meters tall, and come in 3 pieces. And no one in Victoria sort of had one, and we bought one, and ran that. I wasn't with my partner at the time. I was just still living at home, and Mum and Dad had to reconvert the garage and do a couple of modifications. And then I had to to relocate it to a different area off site to store it. So. That was another crazy idea I had, but we sold that.
So what was it again? The driver for that? What? You're a diesel mechanic.
Yep.
And you decided, okay,
I was an apprentice.
You're an apprentice diesel mechanic. So you haven't finished it. So you're not a completer. Is that what it is?
No. So I was. Whoa, tiger. So I was an apprentice at the time. Paid apprenticeship wages. Was working. Just wanted an extra job. So I thought, save work for someone else. May as well work for myself. And I already worked for a fella on weekends who had amusement rides, and we sort of just developed, and I bought this ride and subcontracted him effectively, so the work was there, and and then I sold it just before COVID. Just wasn't using it really.
And so where does that attitude come from? I mean, because a lot of people talk about, and you hear it all the time, that to succeed it's hard work, it's really hard. But the time that I've known you and you were talking about things, you were working as an apprentice, which is a hard job.
It was,
mechanic. And then you've gone, I want a second job. But instead of getting a second job, you said, why don't I start my own business? Where do you think that attitude comes? Because when I talk to you, it's not something that is hard work for you. It doesn't come. I mean, it's not to say you're not putting in effort.
No.
I know you put in a lot of effort.
Do you mean it's not physically hard? It's more mentally hard.
It's more you don't see it as a slog, a struggle that you've got to fight against.
No,
I don't get that attitude. I see it as you see these as challenges that you enjoy overcoming.
Yeah, it's just like you should always look to, as I said earlier, if you're looking in the rear vision mirror, you're going to crash. So how about we look forward and see, if we do this, what are the positives? But I mean, there's sometimes a lot of negatives. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying business is successful all the time. And by all means, I'm not a massive business. I'm a very, very small regional business. However, we are growing and we are making impact every year. But I think more personally, it's just headstrong and just, I don't like the unknown. I like to think, I may as well just do it. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, effectively. So
it's it's that you have that attitude of
just positive, give it a go.
And what happens when something doesn't go right? Is it something that you look at and go, I've got to give up, or how do you approach it?
It's annoying, look, I wouldn't say it keeps me awake at night, but it is annoying. But I just think if you have a good network of people around you and you can spin ideas and run ideas past, whether it's yourself or whether it's other people in your sort of circle of concern, circle of control, if there's anyone in that sort of core group that you can rely on, then. And it might be it might be my father-in-law that I ring up and go, hey, what about this? And he goes, I'll try this. But then, my parents might be the last people I ring. Because, I might ring my mates first or et cetera, and different areas.
What I'm hearing there is, and this relates to the ethos of the station as well, connecting community. You have a community around you that you can call on from support. And I mentioned some of my dad that I call out to, and there's a number of friends that I call out to. My mum I can call out to from time to time. But it sounds like, from a business success point of view, having people that you can call on to speak to. But do you have, and that's why we want to clarify this, if you've got a certain problem, there's certain people you go, well, I won't speak to that person because they're probably...
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to sound crazy, but I'm on enough, business forums that there's people on there that I have their number and I would speak to them weekly about small business issues. I've never met them in my life. I've spoken literally to them online. It's like anywhere in Australia. And there's a guy in Sydney and I speak to him all the time and I've never even met him. Like, we communicated on a forum. We solved a problem. I helped fix his machine. And we've just been chatting ever since. And that was over sort of 18 months ago now.
And that's why I'm really interested about the community. That's why, again, I love this area. As you know, I've recently moved back here.
Absolutely.
But it seems to me that there are, if you ask, there are so many people out there that will be willing to help you. Is that your experience?
Yeah, correct. Information is free. You just got to find it. You just got to ring the right people, and don't be ringing the same person every week. That's going to get annoying.
Do you use one of those phones with a cord on the wall? Do you remember what that is?
Yeah, just spin the dial wheel. That's right.
Was it Victoria, was Australia the only country in the world that had 000?
It's got a long lead to the shed. Don't worry about my mobile.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think it is important that you have that community support. I mean, and don't be ringing your competitor. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't ring them and ask for help. But if you know another small business, I mean, if you can ring them, and large scale businesses, you can ring them and speak to them. It just depends who your network of friends is, I suppose.
Yeah, well, and is it, from your perspective, one of those things where you just ask the question? Because I remember many, many years ago, and you probably won't know who this is either, but there's a famous Australian inventor called Ralph Sarich, and he invented a unique combustion engine, which never actually took. We probably should have, given what
should have been a history lesson.
Exactly.
You're going to leave you with a wealth of knowledge.
But he moved into property, and he became one of the wealthiest people in Australia.
Yeah.
I found out where he lived, and I had some questions for him. So I wrote him a letter, and I put in a return envelope that was stamped, and put it in his envelope in his letterbox. And he actually wrote back to me.
Yeah, I'm not that creepy.
Thanks, mate. We're live on air.
I get to know them first.
Yeah.
Like a tiger.
But is it like that when you go out there? Are people, are they responsive and helpful when you ask questions?
The Gippsland community is very, very helpful. I mean, it depends. People just sometimes look at me and go, "Hey, Crouchy, what's wrong? Like, you okay?" And I'm like, "Actually, no, I've got this issue." Like, so I'm trying to figure out. And they go, "Oh, try this or you try that." It might just be, sometimes just chatting to people, and I love to talk, as you can tell. I mean, conversations on the phone for me go for about 45 minutes. By the time we get through what you're up to, what the family's doing.
To hear the conversations.
There you go.
Crouchy, I'm here. I've got to hang up.
Yeah, bye. But yeah, the point I'm making is, if you can get through to your local people in your local area, you can then adapt your business to suit that local area. And in turn, if you're delivering a good product and you've got good business knowledge from that people in the area, I mean, you should do well.
And how do you determine what is a good product. From that perspective, because I mean, I hear a lot of people, and there's a lot of talk of that at the moment, where people talk about, well, you look at, for example, Hollywood at the moment. There's a lot of backlash on some of the product that's coming out of Hollywood, and then the people that are creating it saying, "Oh, it's the fans' fault." How much is feedback important from your perspective?
It's huge. If you have reviews and you're getting constantly 1-star reviews about your product is no good, or the paint's falling off, I mean, and you're not acknowledging that, and you're not adapting your product to suit your reviews, then you're going to fail, really, aren't you? Because if you're getting 1-star reviews continuously, you're going to continue to get that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I think product is.
But is that, like, when you get those reviews, how hard is it from a personal perspective to not take that personally and actually go?
Oh, huge. Yeah. Huge.
Is there a process you went through to adapt to that, or was this something you naturally did?
No, I just naturally just did it, to be honest. I didn't really work to a process. So
you didn't take, like, if someone gave you feedback and said, "Look, I don't like this," you didn't take that personally.
No. I take it on board as how can I do it better, and ask what would they like to see. How would you like that product, or how would you not put the question back on them, but if you give me negative feedback, that's great, but give me some positive feedback to learn from, because you can't. How do you change your mindset if you don't have a direction?
Because business success, one of the keys to business success is solving a problem. Yeah. And if there's no problem, you don't have anything to do. That's right. Is that part of how you approach that, by looking at the business and going, the feedback, and saying, okay, that's negative feedback, but they're obviously identifying a problem that they don't like. That's something I can solve if I understand it. Is that
because it could be a common thing amongst people. If one person's having that issue, how many are having that issue that are not telling you? Yeah. So, I think you're right in that saying. Yes, it is a problem, but how do you fix it? So
how would be, from your perspective, we go back further again, and we're not going to get into Lorraine because you don't know what that is.
Well, I do now.
We're having a movie night. You're watching Back to the Future. From that, when you were starting a business, and you started, you had a bit of a safety net there because you had a job and you had family support, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what are some of the key things that you identified that you now look back and said, if someone was to do it, these are things I would, what are your key things that you would advise people to look out for when starting a business?
Know your product, and know how to use the machine. I bought this machine and didn't know how to use it, so that's probably a bit of great advice. Like, maybe learn to use it before you start selling the product.
Yeah.
Look, early on it was rough. I was just burning through consumables. I was burning through steel. I was spending a lot of money on that sort of the research and development, and then sort of stopped doing any sort of sales and markets for about 3 months just to cut the product and perfect it before I started to sell it. So the advice I would give is learn your parameters, learn your cash flow, learn all those aspects. And learn, if someone comes to you with a problem and they want a product, their problem is they don't have the product. You've got to solve that. So I think learn a lot of those aspects.
One aspect we were talking about before we went to air was you were talking about how you are really niche in your focus. You have a very specific set of product that you're aiming for, and you kind of stick to that and aim to do that really well before. So you're not a jack of all trades. So you're not trying to do
product,
everything.
Do it well.
Yeah. So how has that really affected how you operate your business?
It's because it's affected the sense that sometimes you'll miss out on a job because you don't offer that service.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to take on that.
How hard is that to accept that? To go, look, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say no to this because it doesn't fit where I'm at.
Yeah, it's okay. It just goes on the whiteboard, I suppose. I don't write it off as I haven't fit that. I just write it on the whiteboard in the sense that I haven't yet made it to that. So I sort of just bench it for the time. I don't.
So you look at it and go, okay, this is outside of what I'm capable of doing at the moment.
That's right.
And it's something I aspire to look for in the future.
I'll do that in the future. So it's not it's a problem now, you could say, correct. But in the future, I don't foresee it as a problem because we'll just adapt and overcome that. We'll figure
and
out
what
how
about that? The ability to say no. Is that, how have you developed that? Because a lot of times and a lot of people do this. We want to say yes. We want to please people. We naturally want to please because we want to be liked.
Yeah. Well, I get asked all the time for licensed and copyrighted stuff.
Yeah.
And I say no all the time.
Yeah.
People go, "You're crazy. You could do that." And I could, but it's copyright. And I I don't do the copyright sense because there is a massive focus on it at the moment. They're clamping down on it really, really hard.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for other people to go out and do it, except I don't, because I know when it comes to it, I'll pay for the license, I'll get the accreditation, and I'll do it well.
Yeah.
And I'll do it the right way. And that way I can sleep at night.
Well, that's an interesting point about, because when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about being able to sleep at night, essentially.
Yeah.
And so you've got this criteria that you've set, going, this is how I'm going to operate, and the copyright's a good example.
Yeah.
Saying that's not within my remit at the moment. This is not one of the products I'm going to offer, and I'm quite happy to say no to that and focus on what I want to do.
That's right.
And a reason I want to talk about that focus and consistency, because I had, so there was a group of plumbers that I knew. There were three guys. They had a plumbing business. It was a large business, and they were turning over 15 mil, but they were working flat out 7 days a week.
That's a lot.
Doing a lot, not seeing their family much.
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly. And so they actually took the stand that they were going to get rid of what they considered their poor clients, clients that weren't good.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, their revenue dropped by a third. So they went from 15 million to 10 million.
Yeah.
And but what they found was they had all this time back. So they didn't have to work weekends anymore.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that they found was they actually made more profit. And we were talking about that before as well. From your perspective, how much of that focus for you has translated into you being really efficient in what you're doing, so you've actually got more profit at the end of the day?
Yeah, look, it is huge. And I think going back to that, where how hard is it to say no? It's like, I wouldn't say no. I'd just refer them to another business that I know in the Gippsland area that does that. So if someone comes to me, let's just use that copyright for an example. Someone comes to me and says, hey, I want this in a fire pit. Can you do it? I would say, no, I don't, for these reasons, but I know other companies that do. Here's a list of them, of people that will probably take that on.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't have to say no, because I just pass it on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not.
So you're building goodwill that way as well.
Well, correct, because then the 9 times out of 10 they come back to me and go, oh, okay, actually that's a brilliant idea. But why do something generic that everyone has? Let's do something custom, and I win that customer anyway. So,
so again, it's not a negative thing when you're doing that. You're actually looking at it from that bigger picture of building the relationship.
That's right.
How important is that relationship?
Massive. It is long term for me. Like it's long term repeat clientele for me, and we have a lot of repeat clientele, and we take on new clientele all the time. Yeah. Every week we're taking on new clients we've never met before. We do all the work for them, which is fantastic. But it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
And social media.
How much does word of mouth cost for advertising?
Absolutely nothing. It is so free.
I know that was a rhetorical question. But...
yeah, I'm assuming you are. We're right across that one.
Well, this is the thing I want to get to, because we talked about that, from when we first met, about having a referral system for that word of mouth. Now, you've implemented a few of those strategies we talked about. Yeah. And it sounds like they're working. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. You are definitely right in what you're saying. Damian Andrews is king.
We're recording this.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah. No, it's look, if you have a referral, it means you care about your clients, isn't it? Yeah. Only businesses succeed if they have a good clientele base. And if you care about your clientele, it's wonders. And as you said, I mean, you told me to delete business cards. I got rid of business cards and grew my social media by over 900 followers from what it already was in the space of 9 months. So the power of social media is huge. But is that word of mouth as well? 100%, because somebody tells someone, oh, I follow this guy on Facebook, and then it's just a new age word of mouth, I call it. Yeah. But yes, it is.
So because we're going to wind up soon, tell us a bit about how people can connect with you, reach out to you, and give us this is your time to plug your business. Tell us about your business. Give us the plug, the spiel, the elevator pitch.
Yeah, so we are a custom side business in Warragul. We've been operating out of there for probably 2.5 years now, going into our 3rd year. We don't have a shop front, but we do local markets and the big shows. We do Farm World, we do the Garden Show. Very popular market is the Glengarry Makers and Bakers on the 3rd Sunday of the month. That's probably
a big market.
That is the biggest and best market in Gippsland, I tell you. I know it's a big call, but it is. It's
quite popular, and they have good coffee there too.
They have great coffee. The cafe there is awesome. It's got a fair few competitors. There's long-established markets like Rugby that have been around for years, but Glengarry is definitely going to top that soon. Yeah. But yeah, I've got another setup going on the road at Christmas time, so you can catch us pretty much double. I'm hoping to hit about 6 markets a weekend in the Gippsland area. So everywhere there's a market on, I'm trying to have a stall at or a marquee at, which is a fair bit, and it's a big push and it's a big challenge, but I reckon we can do it. Facebook is Beyond CNC Metal Art. It's a little black bee is sort of our iconic logo. We're sort of broadcasting everywhere. And you can find us on Instagram at Beyond_CNC, and it stands for country and courtyard. It's a good way to remember it.
Yeah, I love it.
My partner come up with that, actually.
Fantastic. I'm going to give the kudos for that.
Yeah, it does. It stands for computer node control, but who cares about that, really?
No, that's a better connection. Yeah. Darren, it's been a pleasure having you on business, wealth, and mental health. Thanks for sharing your story and the personal advice, and we look forward to catching up again in the future.
Absolutely, Damian. Thanks for having us, and it's a pleasure to be here.